This is the Grow Your Clinic podcast from Clinic Mastery. We help progressive health professionals to lead inspired teams, transform client experiences, and build clinics for good. Now, it's time to grow your clinic.
Welcome back to another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast. My name is Jack O'Brien, and we have a jam-packed episode for you today. I am super stoked to be with you for the next 30 minutes or so. We have an amazing guest, but firstly, thank you for joining us. As always, we really appreciate you trusting us with your time and attention. And if you so desire, you can head over to your podcast player of choice, leave us a review or rating, let us know what you think, or you can get in touch with us over on the website, which is clinicmastery.com/podcast. As part of our Clinic Owner Spotlight series, we get the chance to shine the light on another clinic owner, and this one will be an absolute cracker. Nicole French is an accredited exercise physiologist. She's the founder and director of a number of different entities, clinics, organizations. So she can tell us more about that. Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's a privilege to be on here. It's actually a podcast that I personally really enjoy listening to. So having the opportunity to come on board and have a bit of a chat with you on this podcast is an incredible opportunity. So thanks for having me.
Oh, look, it's our pleasure. And you've absolutely earned it. Can you tell us about your clinics that you oversee, or your entities and organizations?
Absolutely, would love to. So as you mentioned, I am an accredited exercise physiologist. My first baby clinic, who is about to turn 14, actually, is Exercise Rehabilitation and Health. So, 14 years ago, started that amazing clinic. And about 4 years or so into that journey, saw the need to bring physiotherapy into the model. So decided to create a physiotherapy practice, which is Essendon Physio Group. And a couple of years ago, saw another gap of service demand in there for vestibular physiotherapy. So started to combine a model of exercise physiology and physiotherapy for vestibular. And now we also have the Melbourne Vestibular Clinic. So we have 3 practices under one roof, and we work as an amazing collaborative team that 3 entities, which can be a little bit challenging. Perhaps we need to go through a bit of a rebranding activity to bring everything under one. We can talk about that another day.
Yeah, we can. Maybe. I think there's some definite strength and power in those 3 different names. But look, Nicole, we're going to get into the story of those clinics over time. But before we do, as per usual, you don't get away scot-free. We've got a couple of icebreaker questions. Are you ready?
Right. I'm ready.
Okay. Number 1, what are you reading or learning right now?
I'm actually rereading a book right now. I'm rereading Radical Candor by Kim Scott, which I'm really, really enjoying. And my next book will be The Infinite Game, which we'll be doing for book club in the clinic.
Nice. Just a secret between you and I, Kim Scott is lined up for the Grow Your Clinic podcast in a couple of episodes' time. I know.
Oh, God. I nearly fell off my seat. I think I lost my balance a little bit on there. That's incredible.
You've got a whale. So for all those listening along, check out that book, Radical Candor. Great reread. I love it, Nicole. Anyway, I digress. Who inspires you?
That's a bit of a toughie. And I've got to be honest, I'm not sure if I find inspiration exactly from people so much, about more what I align with values and I think teachings of specific people. I really align with Simon Sinek. I feel like I'm magnetized to that human being. I love what he does. I love what he's about. I never get tired of him and really adore what he does. And Jacinta Ardern would have to be my other one that I follow very, very closely. And I'm very inspired by her work.
That's awesome. Great choices. Number 3, what did you want to be growing up?
I wanted to be a vet. Back in high school, I really wanted to be a vet until I had work experience and found it was a little bit gory and probably not something I was quite prepared to go into. I then shifted my focus to want to become a police officer. Well, I'm very much about rules and regulations, but see, the challenge in that is I like to create my own rules and regulations. I don't do very well following others. So that was not going to work. And then I got into musical theatre, and so I decided I wanted to be a Broadway star in high school. So I auditioned for Victorian College of the Arts and really thought that was my pathway, but didn't quite end up going down that way.
There you go. What a colourful history. I love it. And finally, what's a motto that you like to live by?
I would say it's almost comes back to a quote by C.S. Lewis, and that's to do with integrity. So integrity is doing the right thing even when no one else is watching.
I love it. It's fantastic. I'm a huge Lewis fan. Okay, so connect the dots for us then, Nicole, from the young teenager wanting to help with animals and police through to drama and theatre. How did you end up in exercise physiology?
I always loved PE. I loved the human body. I didn't know what I could do with all of that and found a uni course called Human Movement. And it seemed to allow me to learn more about anatomy and the human body and introduce me to the world of biomechanics. And it still had that element of perhaps being able to use that knowledge to help somebody. And if you look at, I suppose, my history of vet, police officer, that sort of stuff, it all works through to trying to help people. But I needed to find what I was really interested in how to help people. So got into human movement at Victoria University and was in my second year of that and had this moment where I went, what happens when I finish this course?
Because EP wasn't as well known, with all due respect back then, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to be a gym instructor. No disrespect there as well, but it wasn't for me. I wanted something different and began searching and came across the postgraduate course that Victoria University was running at that time. And when I spoke to the coordinator, who's now a dear friend of mine, Professor Steve Salig, and he introduced me into this world of exercise physiology. And I loved the sound of the subjects in it. And so he coached me as to what electives to choose in my third year, which would help provide a really great segue and transition into the course. And absolutely fell in love with exercise prescription for specific populations and particularly metabolic health. That was the beginning of my love and my draw to metabolic health, and applied for the postgraduate course and was fortunate enough to be accepted into the 2-year master's degree coming out of human movement.
That's amazing. And you've progressed that now to create quite a platform for yourself, right? You're a bit of a media mogul. You've taken the exercise physiology message far and wide, right? Tell us about that.
Well, I'm never bored. I'll put it to you that way. I'm absolutely never bored. And my absolute love for metabolic health and health prevention and the idea of exercise physiology and exercise prescription and behavioural change and all of that sort of stuff having a greater impact on the world around us is what I absolutely adore about the profession. And it has led me to be able to sit in some amazing seats and some incredible boards, join incredible committees and have incredible impact directly and indirectly, which makes me feel really happy. I was very, very proud to accept a position on the board of the Primary Care Diabetes Society of Australia earlier in the year. So the first exercise physiologist to sit on that board, which was incredible, and to commence work with the National Association of Diabetes Centres as well. So we have a partnership with them. And again, the first exercise physiologist to review their online program as well, which goes out to all health professionals.
That's really, really cool for you, but also for me, a little bit shocking that it's taken so long for an EP to have a voice in that space. For me, it's kind of synonymous, metabolic conditions and diabetes, et cetera, and EP, but it's not the case, obviously.
Absolutely. It's been a medical domination, for a very, very long time, but traditional thinking is changing, which is incredible, and the openness to change and getting a collaborative care team in and listening to other health professionals and bringing them on board, it's happening, it's changing, it's working. We've got to be a bit brave, we've got to be a bit courageous in that, but it is changing, it's happening, it's really, really cool.
We'll pull on the thread of personal branding and marketing and how you've leveraged some of those opportunities later. But I'm just curious, of your time at those levels of influence, are there any sort of highlights for you or things that you're really proud of that you've been able to achieve?
Definitely. I got to speak in Parliament back in 2016, which was absolutely incredible. I mean, people can't see me now because I'm on a podcast, but I've gone bright red in the face. I'm blushing as anything because it just makes me so happy that I got to walk into Parliament and step into this incredible room in front of all of these influential people and be treated with such respect and equality and talk about health prevention and the importance of preventative health and the impact that particular programs have been having on Victorians, and make a case for more funding to be moved into these specific health programs. And it was incredible. I still remember walking down the corridor and I bumped into Jill Hennessy, and she had just come out of a very stressful situation. And I got all tongue-tied and I desperately wanted to meet her, but I lost my voice. I felt paralysed, really paralysed. But this gorgeous woman came over to me and introduced herself to me. We had a chat, we had a selfie, she tweeted it, and we're still in touch. So that was an incredible, incredible moment. And the other incredible moment, I must add as well, when I think about, I'm also a committee member on Parents' Voice, and I was asked alongside of that organisation to go in and give evidence into the public inquiry into the Australian obesity epidemic a couple of years ago. So again, to sit around a table and be heard and really have our opinion and position taken on board with an inquiry at that level was quite incredible again.
That is quite remarkable. So then let's rewind the clock even before then. This 14-year-old clinic, what was the inspiration behind, what was the brain fade moment of thinking, I might just start a business?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I wish I had this really pretty story about, it was always my desire to start business and do all of these great things. But the reality of it is that when I was working in a hospital some time ago, I had a workplace accident. And at the time, we didn't think that it was much, but what it actually unfortunately developed into was a condition called complex regional pain syndrome. And it was a condition where I ended up four-limb affected by it. I was quite heavily disabled for a period of time. And, that in itself has its learnings. But the thing is I got to return to work, and the reality of returning to work, though, and not being able to return to pre-injury duties is something that's a bit tough. And it was at a particular point in my return to work journey where I was called into the allied health manager's office, their occupational rehab advisor, and they had a strong word to me and said, look, we know you've been working really hard to get back to work, but the reality is here is that we don't have a position available for you unless you're able to return to your pre-injury duties and hours. Yeah, so it was at that point I'd been through a year of really hard rehab, in and out of hospital, going through ketamine, lignocaine infusions, lumbar sympathetic blocks. It was a horrific time, and had returned to work and working really hard, and to be told, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough and there's nothing here for you.
Sure.
That was my moment. And I still remember looking at them and asking them, does this mean that I don't come back tomorrow? And they just simply said, yes, that's what it means.
Wow.
As they looked at the floor. So long walk back to the car. I don't remember much of the walk, I've got to be honest. I remember picking up my handbag and just, I've got to get to the car. That's what I've got to do.
Sure.
Sat in the car and called my sister, and she said, well, what are you going to do? And I stopped. And, well, I've got a choice to make here. I can either roll up in a ball in the corner of a room, feel sorry for myself and not do anything, or I can really channel in on my purpose. I know what I want. I know the contribution that I can have to society. I might just need to create something that I can do. And at that point in time, literally, the practice idea was born at that particular point in time. If I couldn't fulfill my purpose and my role and my love for helping people in this beautiful exercise physiology industry, I would just have to create something. So I did. And I went out and I created it.
Talk us through those first couple of years. We'll get to the situation now, but what were those first couple of years like?
As much as they were tough, they were some of the most exciting times that I've ever had. I didn't care if I fell on my face. I didn't care how people perceived me. It was literally a matter of, there was a local gym and my mum went to the local gym and it seemed like a really nice gym. And I thought, well, I'm going to need somewhere to take people, so let's do that.
Sure.
Had a conversation with them. I still remember I used to talk to people in the little cafe area there, And it got to a point where I couldn't run assessments out of there. So I approached a local physio clinic who I had been to for physio, and they offered me their traction room. So what I started to do was do all of my clinical assessments in this one room at the back of a physio practice in their traction room, which I thought was amazing because it was a whole room just for me. Didn't really understand what a traction bed was or anything like that at this time, but it was a room. I could help people. I'm good with that. I would assess people there. We would develop our plans. And then what I would do is rebook them at the gym. And I would see them at the gym, which was 5 minutes away. And that worked really well for a while. You know, the funny thing is I started this business without a single patient as well. I had no contacts. I had nothing. Oh. So I literally set on myself a little journey where I made a list of all the general practices. Meanwhile, I didn't own a computer either, so I needed to borrow that. I had no money. I had nothing. Right. I'd been sacked from my job. I'd been on work cover for a year. It was really tough. So I borrowed a computer. I went to the local library and used all their search engines and all that sort of stuff and developed a list and started visiting GP practices. And I would ring them up and say, this is what I do. I would really, really love to come and meet your team. Would that be okay? And not a single GP practice ever knocked me back.
Wow.
Not one. They were incredible.
Awesome.
It's a beautiful community of medical that we have here. And so I think it was in the space of about 6 or 9 months, I had visited every single GP practice in the northwest sort of region of Melbourne. And they all just started referring, which was incredible. Mm-hmm. And before I knew it, I was opening up little satellite sites in lots of little gyms and lots of little community group centres and nutrition centres and all of that sort of stuff. And I think there was one stage I had about eight clinics on the go, and medical centres wanted me to come in and consult. And I got to a point where I went, ooh, you know, if I'm here, I can't be at 2 places at once. What if I actually got someone on board to work in one of those centres while I worked at the same time in another centre? That could be really great. So I started calling around to my students. I was a postgrad lecturer as well at that time. So I would do that at night. So I did my clinic stuff during the day and then I would lecture at night time. Mm-hmm. And so my students that had finished the year before, I started doing call arounds saying, hey, does anyone want to come and work with me? Got a couple of them on board and it was incredible. And that was our first couple of years, is all these little satellite clinics, talking to general practice, bringing new people into the clinic, writing resources, and just being courageous in doing it. I just kept going. I was going to do whatever it took.
That's awesome. Well done. So we crossed paths a couple of years ago now. Paint us the picture of what your clinic looked like at the time when you started a relationship with Clinic Mastery.
Yeah, sure thing. So we had a standalone clinic by then. So we had moved all of our satellites into a single on-site clinic. And I think at that time we only had the one physio on board. Okay. So when we moved into our standalone site, we recognised that we needed physio and brought a physio on board and started a physio practice. But I think when we met you guys, we had one physio, we had a couple of EPs and some sort of admin team members, which looks very different to what we have now with a team of 7 clinicians, I think it is now, and a full team of about 13. And at the time that I think we first met as well, I was still very much involved in day-to-day operations of the business as well, whereas I don't do that now.
Yeah. So a team of 13 or 14, what does an average week in the life of Nicole French look like? How do you spend your time now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very much on recruitment, induction, training. They're my focuses. Marketing, networking, a lot of time on advocacy. I'm afforded the opportunity to do a lot of work with non-for-profits now. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of work with Diabetes Victoria, do a lot of work with ESSA as well. I do a lot of ambassador work with Girls Uniform Agenda. So I have the ability to do all of those types of things right now. I'm very particular that I have a day and a half a week in practice, so in the actual clinic. I still like to do my focus sessions with my senior team members and make sure everything's on track. We have a strong focus on client experience. So getting client experience is very, very important to us, and that's what we're working on right now. So innovating around that, what could we be doing better? I still like to be around to see the people that are coming to see us as well.
Yeah.
I like to chat to them.
Are you seeing patients yourself?
No.
Do you miss that?
I feel like I should say yes as a health professional.
Yeah, maybe.
But I actually don't. I actually don't miss it, because what I feel more joy in is actually leading and developing this very, very special group of people that I have with me in this practice to do incredible things themselves. That's what I love doing.
Which I think's unreal. I'm just thinking about clinic owners that might be listening in and thinking, oh, that's quite aspirational. I'd love to aspire to love my team and lead my team, but sometimes it just feels like I'm dealing with a bunch of toddlers at times, or I can think of clinic owners that get really frustrated by their team and maybe avoid some of those focus sessions or difficult conversations. So I'm interested, has leadership always been something that you've enjoyed or found easy, or is it something you've had to grow into?
The idea of leadership comes very naturally to me. I can look ahead, I can create a vision, and I like to dream and build and grow things. And so the idea of, if that's what I love doing, I naturally lead processes. I've always been a class captain. I've always been someone that does those types of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're very good at it, though. You could want to do those things and be in a position to do it. It doesn't mean that you're actually good at it. So the idea of growing as a better leader, I mean, that's something I work on, and I know it sounds very cliche. I work on that every single day by pausing, reflecting, reading, communicating. I have several coaches as well in that realm, and I have a leadership coach as well that I check in with specifically around that sort of stuff. I've had to work really, really hard at pausing and listening and not trying to provide all of the answers to everything that comes my way in the clinic. So I've really had to shift from being someone that knows the answers and solving everyone's problems. And I think that's where we get fueled by frustration as clinic owners, because we feel like we need to be that person that has all the answers and solves all the problems. Growing into the type of person that can pause, really listen to what the issue is from that person sitting in front of me, able to ask the right questions to create guidance around, that person being able to find the answers or be led to those answers themselves, so they become more proactive and accountable generally. And working through that process with a team of people takes time. It takes a long time, and there's a lot of frustrations, and there are days where you just go, it would be easier just to do it myself. Why am I getting someone else to do it? I could just do it myself. But that's also a very toxic attitude to have.
Yeah. So it's taken time, and you've obviously put heaps of work in. Even just I'm listening to that thinking, oh, there's some lessons I can take away. I'm sure listeners, if you pull over and take notes on your phone or at the gym, get your notepad out. But I'm interested then, Nicole, what's been the outcome, or what's been the result of this inner work of leadership? What's some of the tangibles you've seen as a result?
We now have really amazing growth pathways for our practitioners. So we have clinical team leaders, for instance. We have administration team leaders. So the work that I've done on myself has allowed me to, I think, get perspective as well on not everything that does go wrong in a clinic is this huge deal. It's a learning opportunity. If something's a little bit out, or someone didn't read book, or it's not this calamity and this huge horrific thing. It's about taking that as an opportunity to coach somebody through a process and help them to then coach others through a process. So tangibly, it's allowed me to let go of the little things to introduce more positions in to the actual business, which has allowed the business to grow. Right. And when I talk about grow, I mean significantly grow from when we had practitioners on board. You know, we might have just had a few practitioners. Not only have we increased our practitioners, but they're full-time practitioners. So that's been, you know, tangible evidence of, you know, growing that team, not just in numbers so it looks shiny, but positional growth and full-time hours, the leadership pathways that have then been created to empower this incredible group of humans that I have here to be able to start to look towards reaching their potential and helping others. You can just see it happening. It's like little generations of people coming through. It's an incredible thing.
Amazing. And so that then creates some freedom for you to do the things that are in your genius and your sweet spot, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of those things I think as a clinic owner that you almost think is not realistic. It can never be that way. Whereas I have a completely flexible week. I'm very clear with my priorities in my week. I'm very clear on my purpose and my vision. I use my values as my filter. And I'm very clear about the things I say yes to and no to as well. So I'm not burning the candle at both ends, but it affords me to be in that space where I can dream, I can think. I have it scheduled in my week to think, which is something that I never, ever thought would be possible. I've got my suite laid out here with all of my massive whiteboards on my walls. Everything's color-coded and arrows and everything has its path. I have my tropical fish tank here. I have the couches that I want. I have beautiful natural lights. I've set up that environment and I sit and I allow myself to think. And I can because I'm not worried about what's going on next door, what's happening at the reception counter.
You trust the team.
It's an incredible thing. I do trust them. I trust them implicitly.
Nicole, I want to get to some of the marketing and branding stuff, but just one more question on the leadership element here. It sounds like you've got time to think and you've got freedom for the advocacy and not-for-profit work. And how do you navigate that tension of perhaps you're not the busiest person in your clinic anymore, or you're not seeing the most number of patients? How do you navigate that tension amongst your team?
I actually really love that question. I genuinely do, because I used to place so much value, you know, the value I delivered was in the number of people that I saw or the outcomes that I got, you know, from my patients. I've had to transition that mindset, and I've also had to become okay with not running around like a headless chook and feeling like I need to, in order to prove my worth or prove my contributions, I'm not running around stressed. I'm not running around asking questions, double checking things. We have this perception, I think, as clinic owners, that our worth has got to do with being busy. Our worth has not got to do with being busy. Our worth has got to do with being purposeful and, you know, great use of our precious resource, which is time, and living our purpose. And so I go back on dashboards and go, but I'm not contributing. They're contributing this because there's a dollar value involved, or they're doing this in product sales, or they're doing this in revenue for clients coming into the clinic. But then I really started to undo that thinking and reverse engineer that and say, well, how do clients find us to begin with? Who has built the trusted networks to bring those clients into the clinic? Who continues to nurture that? I look at some of my recent webinars that I've done where I've delivered, you know, health coaching advice on helping GPs deliver health coaching for people living with type 2 diabetes. And we've had, you know, a week after, we've had a spike in referrals of people living with type 2 diabetes from all over Victoria. Now, I'm not seeing those clients, but my work has contributed to bringing them into the clinic. We're all doing what we need to do. That's my genius, and that's what I love. And that brings people, you know, in a sense. But I'm also teaching our clinicians how to do that as well. So it's that same sort of working through, you find your genius, you get really good at that sort of stuff, but then you develop systems and you help inspire and create opportunities then for the other members of the team to be able to do those things as well. We've even done that with radio. So I do a lot of radio work too, but I bring team members along and actually show them how to plan a segment, give them a go. And I had other team members doing that during COVID while they were at home, while they were interstate with their families. They were doing all the radio shows and I wasn't, while I was working on other things. Amazing. So there's this incredible opportunity there.
When did the penny drop though? When did it go from, with all respect, being all about Nicole to now being kind of all about others?
I think when I really started to better understand what my purpose was in the business, and that came about through one-on-one leadership coaching for me, where I really dug deep. I could read all the books in the world before that, but I really needed to have somebody do a disc profile on me and work through all of that and ask the right questions. And I started to understand what my deeper purpose was and what my ability to impact was. It was more indirect impact rather than direct. And I started to think, well, how could I possibly achieve all of this and work through my genius modes and be really happy? And it's really important to me that people around me are happy as well. Part of my purpose is to enrich the lives of people around me and inspire people to do more of that. And working through what my core purpose was and being courageous enough to map that out and talk to the team about it and have them understand that opened up beautiful conversations about how they could be more involved in that. And that forced me as well. If I'm going to put it out there, wow, I'm going to have to live this stuff now, right? I can't just keep it written on my whiteboard that no one else sees. When you talk about this stuff to your team and you get those beautiful looks of admiration and people really respecting that and being inspired by it, you know what? You've got to do it.
That's awesome. So that's freed you up to play the role that you now play on the bigger stage, so to speak. So let's touch on some of the branding, those elements. What role has that advocacy and ambassadorship and profile played tangibly to help grow your clinic?
I think credibility is key in building relationships. And I think what it has done is help build the credibility of the practice. We become the go-to for particular areas now and particular conditions. So if we have people out talking about research and coexisting with big organisations, so a lot of the work that I do is with Diabetes Victoria, for instance. So when I'm out talking almost on their behalf and with them, it provides credibility to our service. And, you know, that takes a long time to build those relationships as well. That took me about a decade. It takes a lot of time to build those things. But once you start doing that, other doors open to different things. But I think tangibly, what does it bring back to the clinic is that it puts out into the world that you are a niche-based clinic that is credible in what it does, and that builds up trust. And when you have trusting relationships, referrers and the broader community, they're going to be more open to you being the first choice.
So what would you say to the clinic owner who's thinking, more relationships and referrer meetings and it's hard work and it doesn't feel like I'm getting anywhere? What's your advice to those clinic owners?
I would say if it doesn't actually come naturally to you, find someone else in your team that it does.
Right.
Because it might not be you. And that's okay. You know, that might not be your genius. Find somebody in your team that has a strong desire to do that and is very aligned with your purpose. If you are going to have a team member come on board in that capacity, you better ensure that they are a fair representation of your business, your values, your practice, your vision, you know, all of those types of things. But if it's not you, find somebody that can do it. And the other thing is if you're getting frustrated by that, I would be looking at what does your week look like generally and really bring it back to what are the priorities in your week, because this is about sustainability as well. Practices, it's sort of my belief system. It's not about high volume, high profit, all of that sort of stuff. It's about sustainability so that you can continue to provide, you know, incredible services for people that trust you with their healthcare, and providing opportunities for your team members as well. So I would really be reverse engineering what is it that you want in the future. Sustainability needs to be a part of that, and successful practices are about building successful relationships. You're not this open door, closed door of all of these, different practices referring in. If they don't keep referring, that's when it feels too hard. If you've got a really great group of people that you've got a great relationship with, nurture that relationship and then slowly grow the network, but get members of your team involved in doing that as well. And we have things dashboarded in our clinicians, in clinician dashboard about refer and nurturing. So there are specific activities every week that they're accountable to as far as refer and nurturing. It shouldn't come down to just one person. When the whole team gets involved, that's when really great planning and communication is very, very important. Have the team involved in it. You might lead it or you might not lead it. And there's no right or wrong in that. If it comes naturally to you and you love it, do it. If it doesn't, find a better fit.
That's unreal. Really, really good advice. I love this journey, right? From startup and just getting amongst it, independent and solo, through to now a team of 13, 14 across multiple different entities and platforms. It's remarkable. So if you had some advice for maybe clinic owners at either end of that spectrum, the solo startup world or the well-established creating some freedom and a sustainable asset, what advice would you have to those two ends of the spectrum?
I think mindset is going to be key over anything else. And the thing that I continuously focus on, and I think would be really helpful for anyone to focus on, is viewing everything as an opportunity. It's a very, very simple thing. But if we view everything that happens throughout the course of a day as an opportunity, we will see the gold nugget in that, and we'll continue to strive forward and be better and do more. And I would also say, get really, really brave and sketch out, draw out, however you want to do it, what that ideal endpoint potentially looks for you as well. Because if we know what we're working towards, there's real power in reverse engineering that, to be very clear on the steps, to understand what the priorities need to be, look at your own genius, and then find your leverage points in there. And once you find those leverage points, the focus needs to be on recruitment, induction, and training. So you still have that constantly evolving, and you're not building something that's like flexible, like a house of cards. It's something that is sustainable because you've got new ideas, you've got innovation coming through with your team. But in order to lead all of that, you need to know what that endpoint is, or at least the direction that you're going.
It's really good. It's amazing advice. And I'm curious, what role has Clinic Mastery played in that journey over time?
My first conversation with Daniel Gibbs shocked my world.
In what way?
It takes my breath away every time I think about it. So when I followed Clinic Mastery on social media, probably for about a year before I even touched base, and I just watched and watched and watched. I stalked. And then when I spoke with Daniel Gibbs and we did, and you'll be able to tell me what it is, it's like a health practice audit where you can actually work out where you are. And I had a conversation with Daniel about it. And he said to me, why are you being so hard on yourself with this stuff? Can you not see what you've achieved over time? And I had this moment of going, instead of being in the mindset of I'm not where I want to be, or we're not where we could be, and let's just pause, take a reflection and look at that journey over time. We're exactly where we need to be right now. And now it's time to take that next step with that right group of people that embrace the same values and belief systems and mindsets about building sustainable practices, and then practices for good as well. I really gravitate towards that because we can be more influential and create greater impact on the world around us if we are aligned with people that have that same mentality and same values. And having that point in time where we went, you know what, it's okay. we're exactly where we need to be. But what we need to do now is we need to be a bit more daring. What we need to do now is think bigger. And I felt safe doing that with Daniel, with you guys, and with Clinic Mastery as a whole. And I've been involved for probably 18 months or so now, and that has where our growth has just gone bang, but growth in sustainable structure and growth which has moved me out of everyday operations and pushed me into a more of a leadership role, which has been incredible for my team members because they've grown into these incredible roles that they never saw for themselves before I met Clinic Mastery. And it's introduced me to leadership coaching where I can really focus on that as well, which again helps me with my team, but it helps me live by all of those values. And it might not be sitting down with the team talking about leadership, but they see what I'm doing. And when they see what someone is doing, it doesn't have to be about sitting down having a one-on-one about leadership. It's about leading by example. And Clinic Mastery has just been incredible for helping me on that journey. And it's a program that is forever evolving, which is inspiring to me and inspires me. I look at the work that program's doing and the people, and I think I can do more. I can do more. It's incredible.
Well, you've done an amazing job to embody that, and I really appreciate you sharing your story as an EP, as a clinic owner, and through all the advocacy and ambassadorship you do and leadership in your clinic, but in the community. And it's super inspiring. And no doubt listeners will completely forgive us for going way over time. And we could talk.
Oh God,
we could talk for hours.
I lost track of time.
Tell you what, Nicole, if people want to check out your clinics, or maybe they want to get in touch with you personally, what are some of the ways that we could do that?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely number one, if you want to get in contact with me, I would love to have a conversation. I love chatting with health professionals and sharing knowledge, and together is better. Check me out on LinkedIn. So if you search for me on LinkedIn, I will happily start a conversation. Alternatively, you can send me an email. So it's nicole@exerciserehab.com.au. If you want to jump on any of our practice websites, you can simply do that by www.exerciserehab.com.au, www.essendonphysiogroup.com.au, and you can certainly follow us on social media with exercise_rehab. You'll be able to find us.
Perfect. And listeners, we will make sure, as always, that we link all of those up over at clinicmastery.com/podcast, and you'll be able to get all the links, show notes, and everything else that you need. Nicole French, what an absolute privilege. Thank you for joining us on the Grow Your Clinic podcast.
Thanks so much, Jack. I'm sorry that I took up so much time. I get very excited, and this is a big deal talking to you on this podcast because I love it so much.
You are absolutely forgiven, and no doubt listeners will be absolutely frothing. I am. I'm taking heaps of notes and can't wait to listen again. So thank you so much. And listeners, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your attention. Please do get in touch with Nicole or us over at clinicmastery.com/podcast. And we would love to hear from you. But for now, look forward to bringing you another episode of the podcast really soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. To find out more about past episodes or how we can help you, head to www.clinicmastery.com/podcast. And please remember to rate and review us on your podcast player of choice. See you on the next episode.